Hey everybody, welcome to the I303 podcast. I'm your host David Prieto, and here we share ingenious insights and oddball opinions from the perspective of an IO. Here we try to use the science of work to make the world of work just a little bit better. I'm joined today by Brian Kropp, and today we're talking about moving from AI experimentation to adoption to eventual utilization. But before we get too deep, Brian, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about your origin story.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thanks for having me, David. I really appreciate it and getting a chance to chat with you about what you're working on, what you're thinking about, and kind of how the world of AI is changing pretty much everything that we do. So I work for an organization called Hydrogen Struggles as the VP of Global Insights. And so I work with executives really at the top of the house to help them figure out how to develop the best, smartest talent strategies to improve their personal success and their organization success. It's a little bit funny how I first started getting involved in the talent research and advisory space. I had got a PhD in economics and was convinced that, I would do cool economic modeling stuff. And uh, a friend of mine worked at this company called Corporate Executive Board like many moons ago and kept harassing me to come in for an interview. And I was like, fine. Like eventually I did and I actually really liked it. Uh, but then I was hired into the HR practice. And I remember really distinctly at that point in time thinking to myself, um, not a chance in the world. Like, why
There you
would
go.
you ever want to go work in an HR
Yeah.
practice? It's like, talk about the most boring, pathetic, lame thing you can imagine. And as it turned out, I couldn't have been more wrong. Um, uh, and there's a couple things that I learned relatively early on. So, like, one, when like in honesty, it just reflected a lack of my knowledge and understanding that I should have known this before, but I eventually learned it. One, when you look at um, companies that get medium to long-term success, not necessarily short-term success, but medium and long-term success, those are the same companies that consistently make better, smarter talent decisions. Um, so like one of the things that I learned is like it's actually really important
Mhm.
and it matters. The second thing I learned is that if you're a really good senior executive, your job is an HR job. And I remember I was in this meeting when I was younger, and the CEO from a company leans over to me and goes, "Hey, Brian," I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he goes, "Two-thirds of my job is HR." And it kind of blew my mind at the moment. But then he went on to explain it. And he's like, for me to be a really good CEO, I need to make sure I've got the right leadership team around me. I need to make sure that the company is designed in the right way. I need to make sure that employees are engaged and rewarded for their hard work. And that, to massively oversimplify, is just like all HR and talent
Yeah.
related stuff. So the second thing I learned is that the best executives care about it and it matters to them. The third thing that I learned is that um, it is talent and human beings. It's this amazing combination of both incredible science that's moving into the space through assessments, through surveys, through behavioral data tracking, through all sorts of things. But at the same time, it is an incredible art because human beings are human beings with all of our wonderfulness and messiness that's associated with all of us. So it's this incredible space that is both massively scientific, but massively art based as well. And but learning those things are some of the things that I've learned is just most important about town space. So, and a long story short, started at corporate executive board in the HR space, ended up running a variety of the research businesses that we had there for heads of HR and for people that have been around for a while. There's a business called Corporate Leadership Council that had these gold books. So you might have seen, gold books in different people's offices back when we had books, uh, before those all digital. Uh, then CB was acquired by Gartner, became the chief of HR research at Gartner. So then oversaw all the studies that we did and something that was called Reimagine HR that eventually became HR Symposiums and the Big 10 events that were there. Worked in the Accenture talent practice for a while, worked at a company called a World 50 Group, and now at Hydrogen Struggles. All of that really uh, kind of captures what I love doing and working on, which is working with senior executives who care about talent on how they can build the best possible organizations for themselves, their shareholders, and the employees and all other stakeholders that are part of those organizations.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you're sharing that, Brian, because intuitively I've had this sense and I've had this feeling, and it's a bias, obviously, but I think human resources fundamentally is, if not will be, the most critical department or division within an organization because it's the people behind the work. It's the people creating the products, doing the research, driving the work forward.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's the hardest to do, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to undermine like our finance colleagues, right? But
Yeah.
like, and because finance is super hard,
Yeah.
but within finance, there's an answer, right? Like 4 + 4 = 8.
Right.
Every time 4 + 4 = 8, right? Um, in the world of talent, sometimes it might be six,
Yeah.
sometimes it might be 100, sometimes it might
Yeah.
be -4, right?
Yeah.
Like, uh,
What makes things even crazier is sometimes it's not even a number. Sometimes it's
yeah,
W, and it's like,
yeah,
whoa,
totally.
this did it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
But it's the most important and the most fascinating, even in a world that is more and more AI driven. I think that will absolutely hold true.
exactly. And one of the things that I like you're bringing to light is, and I think this is something IOs or HR has struggled with and will continue to struggle with moving forward, is being able to tie people initiatives, people efforts, but tying it back to business outcomes or business, finance, being able to tie, if we develop this leadership program or we engage in this new pre-hire assessment, it yields these results. And
Yep.
that back end is what really business is really focused on. But what drives it is the front end, the people. And I think
Totally.
us coming together, we have an opportunity to blend those two together.
I'll tell you a really quick
Yeah.
story. One of the companies that we were working with was a beer company,
Now you're
and
speaking my language.
yeah, and the head of recruiting there was really struggling getting people to pay attention to why they should invest time in recruiting, making sure that people are hired, onboarded, effective, like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they did all sorts of analysis around like turnover rates and cost of turnover and yada yada, and like zero traction within the company.
Yeah.
The head of recruiting there did something super simple. He just translated an open seat into number of kegs of beer that weren't delivered. So
Oh,
he was able to say for every position that's open, that means, I don't know, even I have no idea what the number is, but like 20 kegs of beer that weren't delivered that day or some number, right? And as soon as the language changed from open seat, cost of hire, time to fill, like any of those metrics that we care about to number of kegs of beer delivered, that simple change made all the difference in the world. And so like the simple, perhaps obvious, but sometimes missed advice that I'd give to any human being that's working in the town space is like, what are the 3 or 4 metrics that the company cares about? And tie all of your talent management metrics to those, to whichever ones make the most sense, and talk about it in the metrics of the business, not in the metrics of talent, if you want that attention.
I am so glad you brought up that story because I think that, so we're going to transition into AI, but this is a perfect segue. And here's what I mean by that. So AI can intuitively track, turnover rates, can track, absenteeism, can track, how much money we're losing. But it may struggle with being able to adapt that or restructure that in a way and craft a story like you just did instead of saying, turnover rate increased X%, which is kind of boring, for lack
Hmm.
of a better term. But if we
Yep.
tie it back to an organization or business metric, just like you did, to kegs not delivered, that
Yeah.
may take a person to take the output generated by an AI to, okay, how can I restructure this in a way that best resonates with the stakeholders I'm trying to target? So that
Yep.
I think is a fantastic example.
Yep. Yeah. No. Totally. And it's important to remember that AI tools, and this is I'm massively oversimplifying it, but to make the point,
Yeah.
uh, the like when you work with ChatGPT or generative AI or any of these other tools, they seem super smart.
Yeah.
Uh, and the underlying infrastructure, yes, is, but what it's really just doing is an optimizing metric, right? And so, it essentially says, this is the question. Here are the set of words that make the most sense to be the next word. And the summation of that creates something that feels really smart. But what's also important to know, because it's predicting the next best thing, the next best thing is usually the next most average thing. So
Mm,
as you're working with it, what's really important is to push hard on not what is the next best thing, but what is the unique thing, the different thing. And so like like a really simple way, and then well, I know we'll get into more details, but like
Yeah.
just in terms of trying to be actionable and tactical, and I mean that in a positive way, is like go into like whatever generative AI tools you're using as a HR executive and share with them the dashboard that you've got and just say, hey, for my company, which of these metrics are most likely to translate into a business outcome that companies like mine would care about?
Mm.
And just ask the AI tool what that looks like. And then don't be satisfied with the first answer that you get back. Then like push it and be like, well, what are the next three? What are the next three? What are the next three? And force it to get from the most common answer to all of the potential derivative answers. And then as the human being, you can look at those 12 options and then like what makes the most sense for you given the data that you've got, like all the other things that are there. But that's how you can use it to help you think through what metrics you want to be talking about with the uh, and I always hate to say business leaders because that implies
Yeah.
that the HR folks are not business leaders, but for the people running business units directly.
Gotcha. And so that's a pretty slick trick. I'm actually going to try that personally, where, okay, not just accept the first, output that AI generates, but it's, okay, give me
Like,
another
what are the
example.
next
Yeah.
four? Like, what are the next four? Yeah.
Okay. I like it. So with that, that actually segues perfect. It kind of the first thing I wanted to pick your brain on is AI usage going to require new skills of individuals? And if so, and you touched upon it just a little bit right now, any other recommendations, any other thoughts in terms of approaching AI with a little bit of a different skill set?
Yeah, the first thing I'll say to caveat this entire conversation is anybody who tells you they know exactly how to make any of this happen,
Yeah,
uh, it's all people guessing and
I
hypothesizing.
thought so. Yeah, yeah.
Now, some of that hypothesizing and guessing is more informed than others for sure. But the honest answer is nobody knows with certainty,
Yeah.
right? So just like take that caveat about what I'm about to say, take that caveat and apply it to what everybody is saying right now, because like we just don't know, and until you find the person that's invented the time machine as like the future 5 years and come back
Yeah.
to educate us, uh, uh, it, apply that caveat to everything. Um, I have fallen into the category that uh, when you look at previous um, technological changes, and the AI one is bigger than the previous ones, but we can learn from them. The amount of skill change, there is some, but it is not, oh my God, we need a totally different set of things. So at the time period of creation of the technology, yes, there is a new infusion, right? So, you think back to like 1998, 91, 2000, 2001. It's like companies were paying like oodles of money
Yeah.
to hire people that knew how to program in HTML, right? Eventually, yes, that skill set was important, but there were so many tools and other technologies around it that it just became part of a workflow, and it became embedded. Before that, like ERP. What we're seeing now with an AI is that companies, out of necessity, are paying gazillions of dollars, which is a very technical, specific term, to people
Yeah.
that have like AI programming skills and knowledge. And at this point in time, they have to do that because we need that skill set and capability to actually build the infrastructure, align the data, build the right agents, because we haven't yet, the AI hasn't built the tools to build itself yet. Eventually that's going to happen, right? So in this time period, yes, you need people that have that skills and capability, but that's different than saying the whole workforce needs that skills and capability. Because what I hear um, from some companies is they say things like, oh, everybody needs to become an AI expert. I'm like, one, that seems impossible.
Yeah.
But two, in retrospect, would it have been a good strategy in 2000 to say everyone needs to become an HTML expert? And
Mm-hmm.
the answer to that with 2020 hindsight is like obviously no. And we need the expertise, but we don't need everybody to be an AI programmer. What we need is people, um, some people to do that for sure, but for the workforce as a whole, what we need is like smarter consumers of information. What we need are people that understand the implications of the technology on how the organization is going to work and operate. We need people that understand the ethical implications of it. We need that sort of how do we use it skill set and capability. less, but not everybody needs to be an AI engineer, right? And that's a subtle but important distinction. So,
Yeah.
uh, first thought. Second thought is a year from now, it could be a totally different answer, right?
Gotcha.
But trying to make a massive skill shift now for the whole workforce, given what we've seen in history and what we don't know, you're more likely to end up building a whole bunch of skills that you don't end up needing
Hmm.
if they're technical specific skills.
Yeah.
If they are more like how do you be a smarter consumer of information? How do you use data more effectively? How do you understand its capabilities and apply it to other business challenges? Like, but those skills you want anyway. So it's not a different skill, it's just getting better at those skills
Yeah.
than perhaps you had been in the past.
Yeah. So I really like what you just laid out because it reminded me of a timeline, and this is pretty recently. And I'll share kind of my thoughts and feel free to jump in, but whenever something sparks your interest. But I remember a couple years ago, say five, maybe 10, there was this push where learn to code. Learn to code was a big thing. And imagine, to your point, if all of us just dropped everything we were doing and we all learned to code. In today's day and age with AI, that some say code just as well, if not better, as some of our top coders, that would have been 5 to 10 years of skill development wasted. And so that's kind of issue number one. Issue number two is I think with AI, and I think most technology, kind of from this point moving forward, the technical ins and outs, the guts of it, I don't think we're going to have to know that skill set. To your point, I think we're going to need to learn or go back to basics. And I've been
Yeah.
pondering this, I've been wrestling with this, where it's take a step back, those broader based competencies or skills, critical thinking. I think judgment. I think ethics, morals. So almost back to what's the word that I'm looking for? Greek, Roman, kind of Socratic, Plato, Aristotle, how they really contemplated and really try to figure out, well, how do we move forward most ethically or most rationally? Things like that. I think that foundational skill set
Well,
is actually to be more critical. And I'll pause
yeah,
there.
yeah, no, some might say like the sort of stuff that you actually learn in a liberal
There you
arts.
go. Yeah, yeah. That's very true.
Like this is one of the things that's super fascinating me just on the skill sets question is like um everyone's saying like the death of the liberal arts degree. And I've got one kid in college too that are several years away, but like in that direction. And the advice that so many college kids got 10 years ago was like, to your point, go be a coder.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, I'm not going to call it any school in particular, but I've had a chance to go to a couple of different like tier one universities.
Yeah.
And the people that are graduating with degrees in computer science right now are having a really hard time finding jobs,
Yeah.
right? And is that broader economic conditions? Is that AI is replacing a lot of entry level hiring? Is it other stuff? Yes.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe as we go forward, like imagination, creativity is going to
Hmm.
become more important. And the reason why I point to that is, and where I think the skill set question is really important, it's like, why are executives saying we want to build these skill sets? Because they don't want to build them just for the sake of building them. They want to build them to achieve some sort of business outcome.
Yeah.
And uh, the next part of the conversation is like, well, what sort of business outcome do you want to achieve? And there's like, yes, certain people are like, oh, we want to improve effectiveness, like pull costs out of the system, and like, great, sure, like there's stuff we can automate, decrease costs, like all good and well, like go down that. But then what they also say is some version of we want to create the next big frame breaking thing, right? It's like want to create the next Uber. It's like
Yeah.
everybody says that.
Yeah.
Which like I totally get and makes sense. And it's this belief that AI is going to be so fundamentally powerful that it will completely change how we operate as human beings. And like uh, Uber and Lyft and like absolutely did that. It's like without Uber, we wouldn't have Uber Eats and we wouldn't have like an explosion in
Yeah.
the food services space where it's delivered. Like all sorts of things have come from that. But what people are missing is that and they think about a company like Uber, like, oh, it's a technology company. It's like, yes, for sure. But like, why did Uber work? Um, because one, from a societal perspective, we became really comfortable with the idea of a shared economy. That has nothing to do with technology. That has everything to do with cultural values. Two, we had massive underlying capacity. we had all of these cars that were never being used, that were just sitting in parking spaces, that were never used. Three, there was a workforce that was available to actually operate this in a way, from an independent contractor perspective, effectively, that could be tapped into. Fourth, and only fourth, there was the technology part of it, that with cell phones and mobility, that you get to people in one place at a point in time. You take away any of those four, and it doesn't exist.
Hmm.
So the question that companies, I think, should be thinking about is not, yes, use AI to improve efficiency, drive cost out, for sure. But I think the more important question is, what are the bigger cultural, societal changes that are occurring that, given that cultural change and a technology revolution together, can create a new opportunity? And if you're not thinking about the cultural, societal shift, you will miss out. And the companies that are like, the chocolate and peanut butter cultural shift plus technology is like, they're going to be the people that come up with a new awesome candy bar. Um, uh, and as part of your AI strategy, like, how does it impact the business that we're doing and the cultural, technological, society, geopolitical shifts that are occurring? Not like, it's not a technology question. It is a technology enabling that broader shift of what's going on.
I really like that you pointed that out. I agree, 10,000% that I think businesses or those that want to be successful moving forward have to identify the underlying need while taking into account all the variables you just mentioned. And how can we mesh those two together? And so for me, I think that's going to be absolutely critical for survival kind of from this point forward.
Totally.
So with that, organizations interested already started experimenting with AI.
Mhm.
Some are kind of stuck in that experimenter phase. They're struggling to identify ways to successfully not just experiment with it, but let's start utilizing it, let's start leveraging it. What do you see as kind of the major holding block from that experimentation to kind of utilization?
Yeah, yeah. Where you start with where a lot of companies are, um, the message from the senior leadership at those companies is, uh, experiment with AI.
Yeah.
Totally get it, right? The problem is, uh, experiment with AI provides no guidance to employees, right? And so imagine if you were to go to your sales team and just say, sell more. I'm like, all right, we'll see you next year at the sales
Yeah,
kickoff,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You would never do that. What you would say instead is like, here's the products that we need to figure out that we're gonna go on. Here is like the customer problems we're trying to solve. Here is the way this fits into that. So uh, it is guidance within a set of guardrails or direction or on a particular problem. So the starting point around experimentation, the companies that are just saying experiment, hoping that something happens, are really struggling,
Mhm.
because experimentation without guidance just creates messiness.
Yeah.
So what you have to do first is to say, hey, here are the types of problems that we want you to be thinking about. Um, Here are the situations where it might make sense to use AI. Here are the friction points in our organization where workflows are hard. Like, experiment there to see if we can do something with it. But it is providing some degree of direction around where those experiments should occur. So that's kind of step one. And what that looks like will be different from company to company. But if you can't articulate what are the three, four, five, six, whatever's the right number for you, areas to get employees to experiment, you're probably going to be disappointed with what happens. Two, AI will generate cost savings. It will generate new revenue opportunities at some point through time. There is significant employee concern, and understandably so, that AI will also create a jobs crisis, and a lot of people will lose their jobs because of it.
Yeah.
Now, different people have reasonable beliefs on, like, in the long run, will it create more jobs or destroy more jobs, right? Um, I don't know the answer to that. I tend to be an optimist, and I think over the long haul, it probably will, because every other significant technological revolution that's occurred before, like, that is the pattern that's played out. Maybe this time's different, but industrial revolution, computer revolution, internet revolution, at the end of it, there are more jobs than before. With that said, though, that transition period has always been
Yeah.
missing. And
Yeah.
if you're an individual, it doesn't really matter if society has more jobs or not. It's like, do I have a job or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I totally get it from the individual employee perspective, the concern that they have. So one of the things that I think is really, really important is that companies, in order to aid that company-wide experimentation, uh, have a and the head of HR should have a conversation with the CFO, the CEO. It's like, how are we going to distribute the rewards that are associated with the innovations that we have? Is it all going to go to shareholders? Is it all going to go to employees, or is it going to be some mix of those two? I can't tell you what's the right answer for your company, but what I can tell you is you need to have that conversation because employees are going to fear that it's all going to go to shareholders and they're going to be left holding the bag and left without a job.
Yeah.
So what you have to be doing as part of the experimentation phase is be really clear with employees. No, as we learn stuff, make progress on stuff, and so on, is that the rewards that are associated with that, a lot of some significant percentage of that will flow back to employees. I'm super vague about what significant percentage is because frankly I
Yeah.
don't know, but like employees have to feel that they've got a sense of employability and that they're going to learn the skill sets and knowledge and experiences for them to have a career uh, through this process and this transition that we're going to go through as a society. And if they don't, then their likelihood to experiment along with you is just much lower. So it's like being clear with employees that we will all benefit in the results that come out of this. And the way that you as an employee will benefit is skill set, rewards, et cetera, that are associated with the benefits that we achieve. And you have to create some degree of understanding, comfort, belief,
Hmm.
appreciation that that's going to happen. Otherwise, experimentation is just going to be harder.
Yeah, I agree. And so to your point, I think that hasn't been clear in terms of if we're going to experiment with AI and we're going to benefit the business, me as an individual employee, what do I get out of it? And so yeah, and it's hard to be excited, be encouraged, to want to experiment and try to create something fantastic if it's just going to replace me at the end.
Like every psychologist that's listening to
Yeah.
this will understand the tension of you're asking me to do something that could potentially hurt me,
Yeah. That's exactly right.
right? And
Yep.
like the it is the psychology of human beings when presented with that, where it's like I don't know if there's going to be an upside, but it's really easy to see the downside.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. No, that's a fair.
we know the end of that story if that's where we are.
Yeah. So to your point, the two takeaways that I'm having based on experimentation is one, organizations and potentially teams and employees themselves need to do better at establishing guardrails. It's not just, carte blanche experiment. It's like that could mean that could mean anything. So maybe yeah, kind of guardrails is kind of point one. Point two is, okay, the organization needs to come up with a way to incentivize and encourage employees to engage in this experimentation. And if we don't have both of those in terms of guardrails and then an opportunity to incentivize,
Yeah,
there's no reason for
yeah.
to escape, that experimentation phase.
There's a third thing that's coming up as
Yep.
well in a lot of conversations around like, do I create hard accountability around it, right? Should I say that as part of your performance review, you have to have done 5 AI experiments or whatever it might be. And there's things that you hear from different companies. So some companies have said things like, you're not allowed that are different flavors of hard accountability. They've said things like, you're not allowed to hire anybody new until you can prove that AI can't do this job.
Mm,
Or in the tech space, you have to show that, X% of your code was written by AI, not by you, right? Like, so for sure, you can try
yeah.
those sort of things. And they, in some cases, they might be helpful. One of the insights out there that executives in the talent space can apply is this one. When they're working with their senior leaders to try to get their senior leaders engagement. Because when you think about a lot of senior leaders, uh, they did not grow up in a world of AI.
Yeah.
They don't understand it for the most part. And I'm stereotyping here a little bit, but like their knowledge base is not as strong. Um, uh, so they don't really know what to do. But here's one of the other thing about every senior leader. Whenever you do any sort of assessment of senior leaders compared to non-senior leaders, one of the things that always spikes is that senior leaders are way more competitive, right?
Yeah.
Uh, however you're measuring sense of competition or competitiveness, like your senior leaders will always spike. And frankly, you want it to. And they never would have been senior leaders if they weren't competitive.
That was just gonna say that. Yeah, like that's part of the territory.
Part of
But
being
yeah,
a leader, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
find me a senior leader's like, nah, winning's not such a, like,
Is
it's
it?
okay if we're
Yeah,
losing market share. Like
yeah,
that is just not a thing, right?
yeah,
Um, but here's what's also true is that they're really competitive. And how can you take advantage of their innate competitiveness? And what I would actually say is rather than thinking about hard accountability or other metrics like that, is think hard about soft accountability metrics with your senior leaders. So, for example, what you could do is go and have a conversation with them and say, like, hey, senior leaders at other companies are doing X, Y, and Z really cool stuff with AI. Up to you what to do, but I just want to let you know that the people you compete against are doing these cool things. Okay, I'll see you later.
yeah, yeah,
Or what you can say is, one other thing that's very important about senior leaders is that they don't like to ask for help, right? Because in their mindset, like I have been super successful and I have gotten here, therefore I am really good. Therefore, if I ask for help, that is a showing that I'm not as good as I thought I was.
yeah,
Um, so you can't go to them and be like, hey, do you need help? Right? So show them what other awesome people are doing. Um, uh, don't tell them that they need help. Uh, But what you can also then do is say, uh, get them to share with other leaders, here's what their plans are for the future. Because what that will create is other leaders who want to show how awesome they are, be like, oh, I worked on something like that. I could then help you with it. So two really important things when it comes to your senior leaders, really competitive, don't like to ask for help. Take advantage of that competition by showing them what other people that they compete with are doing in the AI space, and then give them opportunities to brag to other leaders, which then kind of furthers that cycle of soft accountability, that will likely work better than saying part of your performance review is, 20% of your team's code has to be written by AI.
yeah. I like it. And so, out of curiosity, have you ever read a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini?
I have not.
He's a psychologist. He studied he was really reluctant to publish this book because to your point, it shows step by step. I'm not going to say manipulate, but I'm going to say influence individuals to engage in certain behaviors. And you touched on a couple of them just now, where
Yeah,
it's kind of that positive influence where it's going to benefit the senior leader themselves, the team, and the organization. So I like that. And for my listeners, read that book with caution because it I don't want to say it's a step-by-step guide, but it can be used as a step-by-step guide in terms of how can it touches on a little bit of marketing as well and consumerism, that pricing, on sale just now, price cut. These really subtle manipulations can influence individuals to engage in certain types of behavior.
absolutely.
Yeah,
As an HR executive, you have to do everything responsibly and
yeah, yeah,
ethically.
yeah.
But understanding that there are other tools in your toolkit, uh, how do you use them,
I
right?
like it.
Especially in this space, where there's not a playbook and you can't just say do steps one, two, three, four, and five, right?
Yeah. So I like that. So you touched upon kind of AI experimentation, guardrails, incentivizing employees, transition to more utilization by embedding that accountability, getting seniors bought in. So that can theoretically work in individual projects or individual initiatives. Does that also translate if an organization or a team wanted to scale their AI efforts? Or does it require something that's a little bit different in terms of AI experimentation, utilization, and adoption?
Yeah, there's a lot of executives now are talking about we need to have like a massive AI transformation. And there is a CEO that I know said a really funny thing at one point, which is whenever somebody comes to me and the word transformation is at the end of what they're working on, that's
Yeah,
just code for they're going to ask for a lot of budget dollars around
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Um, this might be a place where it's worthwhile to ask for like a lot of budget dollars around things. With caution. So as you think about that broader AI transformation, there's a couple of other things that I think are really interesting. One, and this is painful to say, right now the vast majority of AI experiments not only lack a positive ROI, they have a negative ROI.
Yeah.
Right? We're spending a lot of money, we're buying a lot of technology, we're training a lot of people, we're having people spend a bunch of time. And yes, there are wins that people can point to, but it's not ubiquitous. And there's a study from MIT that only 5% of, and at MIT and India, that only 5% of projects were successful. There's been other folks that have come out with things that have said, like 60% of projects, in fact, have a clear negative ROI, and so the track record so far is not so great. And all this, I'm actually okay with that. Um, because whenever you're doing something brand new, the likelihood that it's awesome the first time is, you know, low.
Rare.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how many filaments did Thomas Edison experiment with until he actually got a light bulb to work? It's like success rates are low when you're doing something brand new. Like, that's okay. Here's the real problem, as you think that I believe, as companies think about um, going from individual projects to organizational wide solutions. They're really slow.
Yeah.
The clock speed is painfully slow. So, like that same study that I was talking about earlier, one of the things that I found is really interesting is that startups take about 30 days to go from AI idea to implementation. Smaller companies, it's about 90 days. Big companies, it's about 9 months.
It's a big
Um,
difference.
for sure, right? And
Yeah.
like uh, to go from individual experiment to organizational AI transformation, uh, large companies are so focused on ROI that they're forgetting speed. So we're at a period now where I actually think, uh, like as a company, you're going to spend a bunch of money on this, right? Trying to figure out the ROI of it. Like you don't really know because actually most of the return is in the learning, not in the product.
Hmm.
So what you should be thinking about, I believe, is a little bit different, which is let's not worry about ROI right now as we're trying to scale. Let's just find where there's an R, right? Like what
Yep.
works? Like there's a billion ideas. Most of them will not work. Some of them will work really well. Like let's just now find where there's an R, right? And a huge part of the R right now is the learning. Um, and if we're not counting the learning in our ROI calculations, it's going to be negative,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it is what it is. So let's find where there's an R. Don't worry about the ROI right now. Realize that everything we work on has to have a learning component, and we should. It's like what worked, what didn't, sorts of things. Um, and let's go fast because if you are focused on ROI and going slow, you will lose as
Yeah.
you think about the broader organizational transformation. Frankly, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and to get the broader organizational wide transformation, like focus on R, not ROI, go fast.
Yeah.
And if that those components of a broader transformation are not part of the game plan, like you're going to get crushed by somebody, or someone else is going to figure out a really cool set of product services. And if you're a large company, then you're going to buy them and you're going to pay a lot of money to buy them rather than building that capability on your own. Last thought that I've got
Yeah.
is, and we've seen this again and again during periods of transformation. Um, uh, when executives get a budget increase to work on something, uh, they forget that the CFO is going to knock on their door tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
At some point down the road, the CFO is going to come back and say, like, "Hey, you got a bunch of resources. What do we get
Yeah.
from it?" And as you're thinking about the start of whatever transformation you're engaging in, or big project, small project, whatever it might be, you need to set up the expectation up front what you're planning on getting out of it on the back end.
Yeah.
Because you want to lay the groundwork now of what success is. And success is not, I wouldn't commit to you, we're going to pull out 20% of cost or other stuff like that. It's going to be, we're going to learn a bunch of stuff. We're going to do these experiments. And so when that CFO comes knocking on your door, if you set those expectations up front, then by the time you get to the end, you're going to be able to say, did we do them or not? And like, were we successful or not? And a CFO will actually be fine if you're like, hey, we tried this work, tried this didn't work, right? Where the CFO is going to get really frustrated with you is if you're like, hey, you gave us a big slug of money, we did some stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You've got to set up that future conversation before the first conversation.
Yep. I like that. And I like the point where it's going to be difficult at first. And I think we're in the middle of the stage right now to be able to have that ROI when it comes to AI implementation kind of on a broader scale. But I
Mhm.
do like how you set up the structure to lay the bread crumbles, if you will, in terms of, well, this is a step towards that direction. And as long as we keep taking those steps, we will eventually get there.
Right, and you got to set the expectation up front
I
that
like
you're going
that.
to take the missteps.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of stuff you're going to do that's not going to work. Um, and but as long as you're learning from it,
Yeah.
where we are at this point in time, that's what matters.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to transition now to a related topic, but with a little bit AI related, but different focus area. So there's been a lot of talk in popular media, and we've seen this. I've seen this on a personal level as well, where there is the perception that AI is going to take a lot of those entry level roles. That individuals who are just getting their degree, just graduating college, they're coming into one of the roughest job markets right now. But AI may not actually, how can I say this? It may inadvertently actually take jobs of a different level. Can you tell me a little bit more in terms of your thoughts?
I think one of the exercises that every senior leadership team could do for any company is to go through and have a conversation with whoever makes the most sense to have a conversation with. What are the three, four, five big future scenarios of what an AI-enabled world looks like? Um, uh, because you almost need to think about this as like uh, America hasn't been discovered yet. You're in Europe. It's like, hey, we think there's some stuff over there.
Yeah.
Like, what do we think, right? And you have to have a viewpoint, which is we think it's going to be a really fast route to China, or there's a whole other continent over there, or something. You have to have like,
Yeah.
what are some potential destinations of what it could look like? And so one of the things that, and the reason why is like, if you know a potential destination, you're not just like floating out in the wilderness, you're like kind of heading in this direction, right? It's
Yeah.
like, should I go west or north, right? Like at that basic level. And then through time, it's like, well, you actually need to go like, northwest. And then it's like, actually at this specific degree sort of thing. Like, but you'll refine it through time. One of the potential destination points that I think people aren't thinking about, HR executives in particular aren't thinking about enough, is this one. Yes, AI is going to destroy some entry level jobs. It's going to create some other ones, but it's going to destroy some. And like that's where so much of our focus is. But here's something else that for me is really fascinating. Um, you look at the middle managers of your organization. A huge chunk of what they do are repetitive tasks. Approving PTO, making schedules, um, uh, flowing information up and down within an organization, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, that all of those repetitive tasks, clear right, wrong answer, all of that's going to be replaced by AI, or 90+% of that's going to be replaced with AI. So kind of one. Two, when you look at some of the AI agents that are emerging right now, there's a variety of companies that have taken all of this knowledge that's been created on what does a great manager look like, uh, from a coaching perspective, performance perspective, and putting an AI agent on top of that. So when you've got questions like, how do I work with this person? Uh, you could talk to an AI agent who's got, you know, reams and reams of information
Yeah.
and knowledge from all of these thought leaders on that space to talk to, or you could talk to your one manager who, like may or may not be good.
Yeah.
Um, three, uh, when you're doing particular tasks within your work that might be more complex, um, people are putting AI agents across all of the work processes, workflows, across all the customer information that exists. Uh, should you ask your manager a narrower question who's got a narrower span of knowledge, or some other AI agent that is able to pull in all of that information about like what is that company's situation of that customer? What do we know about that person individually? What is the workflow that they're working on, et cetera? So the first one of those, 100% an AI agent is going to be able to do better. On the second two of those, it's reasonable to assume that AI agents can do it pretty okay now and roll the clock ahead a year or two, it's going to be go from pretty okay to even better, right? So you put all that together, and for me, it raises a fundamental question of like, what do I need a manager for? And this is
Yeah.
the extreme,
Yeah.
right? I'm painting the extreme to make a point. I don't necessarily believe we're going to end up in this world, but painting the extreme just to make a point, which is if I don't need to go to them for administrative stuff, if stuff about customers and workflow an agent can handle, if performance coaching and feedback uh, is maybe as good as I get from them, like, what do I need? So as a company, then it begs a question, which is, well, if managers need, if I as an employee go to my manager 50% less often, as a company, do I need 50% fewer managers? Like maybe.
Yeah.
Um, uh, or how does that manager value proposition change to be build empathy, understanding, more psychological support, more social work support types of things, more human related things, more liberal arts related things? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
um, what is the right mix of those two, but what I do believe and that we're missing is the impact of AI on middle management at companies, right?
Hmm.
In terms of what the organization pyramid looks like, or if it's even a pyramid, how many you need, all those sorts of things. Then you think about that for a second, you're like, well, gosh, if we have, 30% fewer managerial roles, historically, career progression is I'm really good as an individual
Yeah.
contributor. I get better at that. I'm a frontline manager, I go for frontline managers. And that, for the vast majority of people, is career progression, right? Now, I'm not saying like becoming a manager is actually all that it's cracked up to be. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
career progression, the way that we think about it. So in a world clock ahead a couple of years in an AI enabled world, we probably have fewer managers doing different types of things. And we need to reimagine what career progression looks like through individual subject matter expertise, rather than career progression is just managing more and more people. And there's several other kind of big things like that that companies should be thinking about, talking about now, as to how their organization design will change. And frankly, we're really focused on, oh my gosh, it's destroying entry level jobs, which it is.
Yeah.
But there's other really big important questions that you need to start wrapping your head around now, rather than waiting for it to happen to you. Because like, if you're an HR executive, uh, the CFO, and this is the CFO's job, and the CFO should be asking this question. They're committing malpractice if they're not. CFO should be asking the questions like, so we bought these tools to automate a bunch of the tasks that our managers used to do. Do we need fewer managers? And the CFO is probably not going to ask any fewer managers. They're probably going to ask the question, how many fewer managers do we need?
Mm-hmm.
And if you cannot have a good answer to that question, that it will be a difficult conversation between the head of HR and the CFO.
Yeah.
And the answer is we need managers to do different things and potentially fewer, but like you got to be ready for that conversation because it's going to come at some point.
Yeah. I agree. And I've been wrestling with this idea myself in terms of so as a IO practitioner, one of the things we do is called the job analysis, where we identify the skills that individuals do. I'm not saying this is for every manager, but to your point, what a lot of them do is administrative work, which can be automated. And if AI gets really good at being able to customize or nuance their approach in terms of coaching, in terms of development to each individual employee, that's 90% of what a manager does. And
Yeah,
it's, to your point, what are they going to be doing from that point forward?
totally. And it's
Yeah.
like, there's several places that I know of, and I've seen the AI agents that they built, and like, they're not perfect by any
Yeah.
stretch, right? Like they've
Yeah.
got problems. Um, uh, they're too long-winded. They're too try to please, like,
Yeah.
right? Like, but you can see them right now, and you're like, huh,
Yeah.
with some refinement and more experience,
Yeah.
as we learn to ask better questions, like all that sort of stuff, it's going to be better than a good chunk of the managers that are out there.
I
Like,
think so too. And I think not only that, but it's going to be the best manager for each individual employee, where one manager,
yeah,
I'm not saying all do this, but they tend to do kind of a blanket approach to their entire team. Whereas with AI, the way you and I maybe respond best to a manager might be a little bit different. And we'll get that customized or that nuanced approach.
it's a good point. How do you like? It'll give us the ability to adjust feedback where it is the most effective for the consumer of that feedback. Yeah,
That's exactly right. And it's only going to get better and better and better over time. And it's like to your point, fast forward a couple years from now, if I as an employee have my own personal coach slash manager slash supervisor who's giving me, feedback that best resonates with me, so I perform my best, do we need an actual person there? And I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
My perspective is like to some degree, but not the degree we have now, and
Mm-hmm.
probably doing different things, right?
Gotcha.
Um, uh, but what I feel pretty confident about is uh, AI is going to enable us to scale the number of scale an individual manager's impact.
I like it.
So we're probably going to have fewer of them,
Yep.
right? And they're going to be doing different stuff. Is
Yep.
that 10%? Is that 50%? Like, I don't know. But like we're
Yeah.
going to go in that direction. It's like it's going to be north. Through time, we're
Yeah.
going to figure out is it more northwest and like what exact degrees, but like it's the direction we're going.
Yeah.
Um,
So as you were sharing that, an example or an analogy that popped into my head is imagine if we can copy the best or most effective instructor slash teacher to all students. Wouldn't we
mhm.
want to do that?
Totally. And it's you look
Yeah,
at like take YouTube or anything else like that. We've been able to go from one teacher teaching, like 25 kids in a classroom, for some things, one teacher teaching thousands and thousands.
that's exactly right. Yep.
And so that's like we're going to see some of like similar types of scaling, but take that one step further, and it's like, well, imagine a teacher who could teach directly to you.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And, like that's when we
Yeah.
think about scale, that the whole situation starts to look different. Is it going to take us like 3 years to get there? Is it
Yeah.
15? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But are we going to head in that direction? Yes.
Gotcha. Awesome. So, Brian, I think this was a fantastic conversation. I really like your perspective. It's tangential to what I do, but I was absorbing it,
Great.
all that I can. If individuals wanted to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing or getting some insights from you, where would you recommend they go?
Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to do that. We do a ton of work in terms of supporting executives as they're thinking about how to build the right leadership team for them, how to create the right workforce to be successful in the future. And so, if you're really trying to figure out workforce leadership challenges, lots of stuff we can do to help and that I can do to help. Always feel free to reach out. And if I'm not the right person to help you, I can always connect you with someone else who can do a better job than I. But feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's the best way to do it. And more than want to have a conversation with anybody from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, and you all have a good rest of your day.